Hello, everyone, students and colleagues. Today is our last webinar in the series of webinars in the Digital English Lab 2021 at CSLC Lebanese University. Our session is titled Learning Experience Design Projects Implemented in the Arab Region by Kashida. Kashida is a Lebanese startup, and I'm happy to have with us its two co-founders, Ruba Mourad, the Director of Learning Experience Design, and Hassan Mourad, the Director of Tech Innovation, and now Learning Experience Design with Kashida. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for having us. It's always a pleasure to speak to students and potential contributors to the e-learning industry. We'll first take you through some background about us, but we've decided to just take a couple of cases that we've worked on and present them to you guys, and this way we can tackle majority of the topic areas we think that you might be interested in knowing about. And then we can have some questions from you guys. We were already introduced. All right, so commonly asked question is what Kashida means. Maybe a lot of you guys might know it, lots of people don't. A character that's used in Arabic and in Persian script, and it's that extension between letters. We kind of thought it's quite a representative of what we do. It's a connection between knowledge, technology, education. So we're trying to bridge different disciplines and deliver a complete word, let's say.
Yeah, I want to say something. I love Arabic calligraphy, and I feel that with every character, especially the Kashida, it does two things. It enhances the meaning because the use of how you elongate letters and all that actually contributes to the meaning, and it connects the letters to make them more meaningful. So this is the idea how we do. It's a bridge between technology and content or learn. And that's why we picked the name Kashida.
The best way I can describe what we do is we design and develop digital learning experiences. There's different delivery methods that we work on. The majority is distance learning, but also there's some face-to-face content that we do, or a blend of both. And we sort of start off from the learning experience design, and this grows into a media production, technology, and all of the components that allow us to deliver the end result. Ruba and I started Kashida in 2011, but we were already involved in digital education back 2004, 2005. So we saw a lot of changes in the industry. There was a lot of challenges. In the past few years, we saw a huge difference in how people are experiencing knowledge. I would say that defining factor in our journey is our ability to adapt to the changes in the ecosystem and the technologies available for us to deliver our work. Our team is very diverse. We have, of course, centered around the learning experience designers led by Ruba, and graphic designers, developers, artists, and programmers all working together to produce and design the digital assets that we do for our clients. Ruba is going to tell you a bit about how we define our learning technologies, and then we'll go into the projects or the case studies that we have.
So the picture I have here is of agricultural technology, and you have fintech, financial technology, and what we have is learning technology. And learning technology is like a process, and it's a method or system to make learning experiences. For us, we believe people want to learn, and we are able to create the best experience for them to learn through the technology or the methodologies and through the content that we create and the learning space that they learn in. So all of these are basically learning technology. It's not just the technical technology, but also the methods and the systems and processes that we use. I wanted to highlight, because you're all students and there's a reason why you got into this space. And whatever I'm going to say probably will resonate very well with you. So as you see here, the gray big circle, it's about learning technology, where we're using the tools and the science of learning. I'll move back a little bit to explain how market trends and the landscape of job markets right now is set up, where there are so many advances in technology, and I'm saying technical technology, interaction, communication, all of that. What has happened is that there are shifting roles in the job market, but also a generation with a different attitude. So Generation Z and Millennials, which most of you are probably part of, and even if you're not part of, you're, let's say, immigrants too. So if you're like me, 42, still my attitude towards work and the job market is very similar to the Millennials and Generation Z. So from that perspective, this generation or this group of people who are in the job market really have different learning preferences than before. I think before people were okay with someone lecturing at them and them understanding, trying to figure it out or applying something that they are told to memorize. Right now, people want to understand the root of the knowledge and have the skill to learn. And at the same time, even in the job market, the roles have changed. So there's very technical, functional roles like programming, learning experience design. At the same time, in general, there's a shift in what the job requires. So your shelf life of any knowledge or information that you have is really 3 years in any job that you have. Things shift very fast. So the biggest skill that you need right now is to have this skill of knowing how to learn, having leadership skills, having analysis and communication skills. So all of this boils down to this real need for an advancement in learning technology, whether it's the tools and the space that we use or the science of learning and understanding how people learn so that we have changing business impacts and better space. So that's why most companies, most organizations, most developmental programs have focused on learning as their key factor for progress and sustainability. This is just to explain the landscape. And so I think the best way to illustrate what we're talking about is to show a successful learning program. We're going to walk you through 2 of our programs, and each one is from a different perspective or angle. So I'll give the floor to Hassan to explain this very successful learning program, and it's in Arabic. It's for the region.
Yeah, the first case we're going to talk about is Riyali Rowad program, which is a project that we initiated or started working on back in 2016. I'm going to show you a very short video about sort of the project. It was a part of our submission for the Learning Technologies Award. So I'm going to run this video first, and then we can go through the details.
لو نرجع لمثال مصنع المواد البلاستيكية صديقة البيئة، يتم تسجيل تاريخ شراء المواد الأولية وتاريخ تحصيل ثمن الزجاجات البلاستيكية.
وبالتالي عليك أن تفكر أيضاً بالتكاليف التشغيلية. نفترض أنك حتطلق العمل في مؤسستك في شهر يناير.
Brief about the program. It's a financial literacy for entrepreneurs. We created this program for Riyali, which is a corporate social responsibility initiative by SEDCO investment group in Saudi Arabia. Basically, they had some previous programs done, and they wanted to do one specifically for entrepreneurs, and that's when they reached out to us. Now, this Rowad program went on to win the Gold Award in the Learning Technologies Awards of 2018 for the Best Learning Technologies Project in the public and nonprofit sector. The reason we chose to present this project is not only that it's an award-winning project, but also if you look at the comments that we received on it, the keywords design excellence, user experience, individual context, they all lead to a well-designed program that exceeds only the sort of classical media development for e-learning. Ruba is going to take us through some of the aspects of how do you actually design for excellence, and what's the difference between, just producing videos, because I'll just give a brief on the brief that we got from Riyali at the time. They wanted to do 5 hours of video-based learning, and they gave us an outline of the topics that they want to cover. We felt that there's a lot more that can be done with this than just producing videos, okay? So we went through a whole design journey, and Ruba's going to take us through some of the details of it that allowed this program to be actually an award-winning program. Go ahead, Ruba.
Yeah, so basically, we have a process that we conduct when doing any discovery or initiation of a program, and that is basically to understand who the learners are and what their needs are, and then what are the needs or objectives that we want to reach from a high level for the program. So let's say we need them to be able to successfully go through incubators or find funding as entrepreneurs or such. So we identify what the needs are, and this is where we really explore with subject matter experts, with the intended audience, with the stakeholders, what do we want to achieve finally. And then we conduct a learning experience design process. And the reason why we do it is so that we can identify what are the learning moments that are needed and what's the learning path and where should this learning live or how will it be delivered. Sometimes it can be with a blended model with synchronous sessions. Sometimes it can be fully online and remote. And sometimes it can be fully synchronous with different media types that will enhance the learning. So this is something very important on why we create a learning experience designer. So this is one of our methods to at least identify what learning approach we should tackle. So as you know, there are different kinds of learning approaches, including problem-based learning, edutainment, and many other like game-style learning, gamification. So there are different types of learning, case-based learning. So what we believe is that there isn't a single approach that is the right one. We have a system where we cross-analyze, first of all, extract the information about what is the level of challenge of this learning material, the level of competency of the learners, what is their interest in the material, and the interest is factored based on 5 factors, including the difficulty level and including how relevant it is to their either job function or their needs, or whether they sought out that learning or if it's required as a requirement for compliance or such. And then we also look at the learning objectives and we use Bloom's taxonomy to see what cognitive process is required on the higher level. So after doing all the enabling objectives or the components, what do they need to achieve? Are they going to be able to analyze something, or do they need to create something, or simply remember steps or a process or understand it? So one example of that is the ages model. That's one approach. Just to give you an example of how do we reach that idea of the ages model, we look at something where the objective is kind of to apply or to understand a concept or a process or such, and the interest of the learner is categorized at, let's say, in the middle, 5, 6. Then one of the appropriate models to use would be the ages model. Main criteria of the ages model are 4 components to trigger the generation of knowledge and retention on the long term and ability to apply this knowledge. So first stage, it's capturing the attention, getting someone interested in the learning content, and then generating this interest where you trigger prior knowledge or linking to other knowledge or skill that is similar or drawing the parallels between prior knowledge in the brain. And then there is the emotional aspect, and that's where edutainment comes in, or that's where trust in the presenter that is presenting the material comes in. So there needs to be an emotional trigger as well. And then finally, having the space or time between different knowledge components, allowing the brain to process this information or the skill that is new to the learner. So in that sense, the Riyali program was designed to encompass these 4 areas. So we had The presentations were done by actual entrepreneurs who are successful and known as influencers in the sector. And they are the ones who presented the knowledge bits. And then there's a simulation where they actually can apply the concepts of like the business plan and the techniques that they need to prepare within their entrepreneurial journey in a simulation, and then have the tools so that they can apply it themselves, Excel sheets and all of that. And in the delivery method, we recommended two approaches. One is direct self-paced approach, and we recommended each module is done over a period of 2 to 3 days. And then the sequencing of the content also allows for the spacing between new information and the next. And also with the blended model style, where the incubators and other institutions applied this program, where we had like weekly programs with synchronous time, with application time and discussion time. So this allowed the spacing to extend over a period of, I believe it was 10 weeks. Yeah, this is an example of a learning approach. And as I said, there are multiple different types of learning approaches that can be done. Hassan's going to talk about the delivery space, which is where the content lives and how it's being interacted with.
Yes, this is going a little bit beyond the Rowad project, but it's still within the context of the Riyali platform and client. When we developed the Rowad program, Riyali had a custom-made sort of platform, let's say a CMS or a light LMS, that they were using to deliver their learning. And after our first engagement, they were consulting with us on the technologies that they were using. And we had recommended a totally different approach, going with a learning management system. And now Riyali is still our client. We're now doing a lot of technology services as well as content services that we provide. So I'm going to touch on the platform or the delivery space as part of this project. Currently, it's a very busy space. There's a lot of technology, a lot of platforms, and somehow the industry is struggling to pick and choose, what to use where. There's a set of mature technologies that are widely available, and there's so many options to choose from, such as the CMS, typical content management systems that are used in websites or larger portals. There's the learning management system. Learning record stores and learning object repositories are fairly new. Well, not new, but picking up. They're quite mature. The objective of all of these is to be able to deliver online education, to manage users and courses, and to sort of store the data and analyze it.
And Hassan, there's also the language processing, which actually some of the students on this webinar are learning.
Yeah, that's where AI and machine learning probably plays a big role. There's a lot of technologies that may be adopted into the digital educational space. We see some applications, but still there isn't a mainstream sort of affordable application that people can use. But we anticipate that with AI and machine learning, you can get a lot of personalization that should be big data, not big data. Big data analytics and blockchain, you can do a lot more. With blockchain, you can do some data protection, you can do some advanced data analytics, and all of this is going to drive to a more personalized learning experience online, simply because we can crunch a lot more data and we can make a lot more sense of the data. We've seen this happen in the commercial space. I mean, e-commerce websites that are trying to sell you products are using these technologies to recommend products that you're going to buy based on your preferences, based on your purchase history, etc. Why not recommend learning that is relevant to you? This is a space that's going to grow. Internet of Things, virtual reality, augmented reality, these are all going to play into a more immersive experience. Also, until now, we don't see any sort of strong need to have these technologies incorporated, but as they become more mainstream and more affordable, we're going to see these play a part in digital education. And I think with COVID, this has accelerated because at least webinars and live online sessions have become sort of mainstream, common practice for everyone. With that sort of busy space, we need to try to figure out what do we use, what kind of requirements or factors play into choosing what technologies we use. We first look for technologies that are fit for purpose. We don't want to overkill and we don't want to under-deliver. So it's very important to choose a platform or a technology that really serves what you're looking to do. Future proofing is not always possible, but if you have a 5-year plan, if you have a 3-year plan, you can plan ahead and know where it's going and not invest in technologies that are anticipated to die out, for example. Accessibility is very important now and gaining a lot of importance because simply we need to make online content accessible to not only people with needs, special needs, but on multiple different devices, learn on the go, and you want to see things on your mobile phone, and you want your course to run easily there. So this is very important. Another really, really important thing is other than like being customizable and scalable, it really needs to play well with others. Systems need to integrate with each other. Isolated systems are not going to have a future. Everything is going to need to integrate with each other. This is how you're going to see more specialized platforms and specialized technologies being adopted because simply it's very easy to bring them into what you already have as an existing environment. Riyali is an ongoing project for us. Starting with Rowad, we implemented an LMS for them based on OpenEDX. We've consolidated all the data that was dispersed and now it's centralized, and we're doing the required analytics to understand the learners and the users more. We have a scalable infrastructure set up, and actually last month we designed and ran a nationwide across Saudi Arabia a competition for school kids. And this saw close to 500,000 new users join the platform in around 1 month. The total learners is up to 1.6 million. And this includes some offline learners that they actually delivered the courses to them in schools, in class. That's pre-COVID. In terms of content, we've either developed from scratch or upgraded other programs for different age groups. So there's Ashbal for the youngsters, Shabab for university students, other than Rowad, which is for the entrepreneurs. Asasiyat, or the basics. This is sort of covering the foundational financial literacy, and also Ajal is for teens. And now we're working on a Rowad 2.0 advanced financial literacy for entrepreneurs. Yeah, so that's pretty much Riyali.
Yeah, so the question becomes like, do all learning programs need an LMS? Because Hassan mentioned, there's like, at least for Riyali, the content or the learning experience lives on an LMS, even though it's integrated with a website, with a knowledge repository and a resource center and a blog and all of this whole ecosystem. But the main learning content is on the LMS. In this case, a second example that I'm going to show you, also in Arabic and English from the region, is not hosted on an LMS. It's safespace.qa. It's about cyber safety, and I invite you to go and check it out. It has content for all different user groups, including like general public, which is a wide age range, youth, which is 12 to 18, children, which is 5 to 10, and educators and caregivers, which include parents, child carers, nannies, everyone who cares for children as caregivers. And it's in both Arabic and in English. So I really do invite you to have a look. What we did for them is reconceive their general platform in itself from a user experience and a user interface, because they've had it for 10 years and they have been losing traction, even though they have collaboration between different ministries, including Ministry of Education. It's an initiative by the Ministry of Transport and Communication. So we did user interface, UX design and recommendations. We created a content strategy, which is very important, and I will address it next. Learning experience design, concept generation, character design, graphic design, of course, for all the assets, content and script writing, animation, auditing from a perspective of prior content and how it can map to our new framework. So this is generally what we have been working on for SafeSpace. To get this learning experience excellence, we have two factors, the learning space and the content. And what we wanted to achieve is multifaceted and layered. So we wanted to get them the basic knowledge. We wanted to have the critical thinking, so it's a skill. And we wanted to get certain ethical or cyber netizen behavior. And on several layers, where it's about the individual, the community, and their position as a global citizen. Because now the online world is not just about, let's say, Qatar or the Arab world, it's about being in a global space. That's why we actually had to create a content framework. So our criteria for success was these 5 aspects. We wanted content that is easy to consume, and this was related a lot to how we organize the space where individuals can consume the content, relevance to each of the user groups and to the needs, engaging, accessible, and had dual language and felt seamless within the dual language. At the same time, had to be culturally relevant to the region, but also applicable on a global level. So for this, what we did is conduct actually a discovery process that included design thinking. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with design thinking. Design thinking is a very beautiful process that includes the beneficiaries or the people who are going to be utilizing any program for them to actually input into the design or the way that they understand or want to receive information, as well as how they see the space and the categorization or the taxonomy of the content related to cyber safety. I'll move to how we tried to make the easy to consume. We identified 11 themes, and these were identified based on focus groups, design thinking focus groups with subject matter experts that included child psychologists, cyber safety experts, cybersecurity experts, child counselors, and teachers, so that we can come up with all the components that we might want to address related to cyber safety. And these are the categories that we identified, so that we don't miss out on anything, because there are buzzwords or moments where like the focus is on cyberbullying or the focus is on cybersecurity, but then we miss out on our cyber identity, or we miss out on new technologies and new economy. So this is why we structured the learning material into these 11 categories. How do we allow these different users that are using the same platform get the knowledge that they need in a smooth way, and at the same time open up their access to different types of knowledge? Because a caregiver might also be a teacher, or a teacher might also be a youth as well, or the child might have parents and teachers dealing with their learning of cyber safety issues. So what we did is each theme goes into a landing page, and this landing page has 4 types of content. And the idea is each of these types of content will attract the user group to them. So educators are more interested in statistics and kind of infographic information where they can identify what they need to do or apply. Caregivers are highly affected by influencers and experts. Youth are highly influenced by like self-assessment tests, and they can then seek out the knowledge that they need. And children through cartoons and through storytelling. So this is why we have, like, if you see, the first one is the cartoon series. The second one leads you to the cartoon series. The second one leads you to a quiz. This is the theme is استخدامي السليم للإنترنت. The third item is an article right now, but also will be a video of an expert talking about تأثير الألعاب العنيفة على الأطفال. And then we have the caregivers, التحكم بالمحتوى الذي نراه عبر الإنترنت. So the idea is once they click on this, they start consuming the content and the related content to it, because we have محاور ذات صلة and then محتوى ذات صلة as well for each of the content that we have. So this is the content framework. We wanted to include the individual, the community, the country and the world, or like the citizenship aspect, and then the new technologies, emerging technologies, and new economies that are related to cyber safety and the cyber world. Again, the content framework, it's a guideline to cyberspace. It's a human-centered design. The individual is at the core, but the structure aligns and allows us to make sure that all the assets are aligned to the structure, and covers knowledge and skills domains for a netizen. So the second part is we wanted the content to be very engaging. These are the kinds of content types that we used. On the left side, we have articles, and articles by experts and articles by content writers, animations, videos, infographics, game simulations, cartoon series, comic strips, and self-assessment quizzes, as well as having an ambassador program, which we haven't launched yet, but also the ambassador program triggers this going beyond just the space online, but also leading to adoption in their daily life and having these ambassadors who can like promote cyber safety measures. Other types, of course, are like apps and VR, collaborative tools, augmented reality, job aids, which are different options that we can add, but we didn't include in SafeSpace. This is an example of a cartoon series. Salim and Selma, they go through different situations, like it's part of the Hawiyati Raqmiya or digital identity. It's a little cartoon episode where Selma is dealing with her grandfather, understanding how he positions himself online, his picture and his profile and all of that. For each of the themes, they have a cartoon episode, and hopefully we'll develop more. We also did a series of animations. There's a series for children and there's a series for public and youth. So this is for children. This is an example, screenshots from an animation where it's talking about tanammur al-electroni or cyberbullying. And of course, it's in Arabic and in English. This is a game simulation. They go through a scenario situation and they choose like, what do I post about this, or how do I behave in this situation? And they will get different results. Depending on the path they took, they end up with either they took the right measures and we give them a tip to keep in mind, or they have failed in certain areas and they get feedback on that. So there might be 4 or 5 different outcomes depending on the path that they took. Infographics, there's infographics for youth and public and educators. They can be printed out and used as job aids and resources in their live settings. Infographics are an amazing tool because it makes content and knowledge simplified, and our real objective is to always make learning simple. So when you refine and define complex ideas into simple diagram or an explanation, then people can really understand it and relate to it. This is the part about accessibility. So every single item or media type or content on SafeSpace is accessible. Here, I took this screenshot just to show how every single image has alt text, which any screen reader would read. So if someone had visual disabilities, their screen reader would read what the picture is. Everything, including infographics, have a descriptor of what the content is. All the videos or animations or cartoon series also have text transcript and can be utilized by hearing disabled or by visually disabled. And one thing I wanted to point out, and I think it's relevant especially to the language processing group here, is that there was something very important that we always try to define when having things in multiple languages. Cultural relevance is very important. So some things may have localized aspects. Some material is written in English and translated to Arabic. Some material is written in Arabic and translated to English. But in this situation, to just define the cultural relevance of everything that was included in SafeSpace is related to the Arab region and the Qatari society, and not examples of Western or European or Asian context, because we really believe content has to have not only language, but also cultural affordances. So some content that we do create will have multiple versions, not just in language, but also might have changes in examples and material. In the case of SafeSpace, the cultural priority was Arab and Qatari society for both English and Arabic.
Wonderful,
Can
guys.
I
Wonderful.
add a
I will
couple of
start with
things before opening up to QA? First of all, both platforms are open to public. So there's Riyali.com and safespace.qa. If you guys want to explore, go ahead. And another note about language, since Ruba closed with that, language and localization is a pain point in the industry. We try to kind of break the classical method or approaches to online learning. We also feel like the space concerning language needs to sort of change, and the principles of localization and how these are applied across the industry needs to be treated in more seriousness, because it really affects the quality of the content that you're delivering.
Yeah, basic translation is never enough. When something is translated, it has to be copy edited so that it actually sounds native to the language and not just a translation, a basic translation.
We sure agree with you. And I was saying that there was a comprehensive approach to what you do, actually. First of all, you gave us some kind of an introductory information on what generally is needed nowadays in the context of e-learning. You have mentioned it in this slide on the space delivery and Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, and saying that we might need some, we might need all. We're not sure, though. And currently, we don't have an affordable, available platform. But things are accelerating, as you're saying, and I'm very happy that you've shared this safe space, but I didn't get it if it is a package. Like, is it offered as a package to a family, or is it like we pick and choose?
It's available online as a platform. Yeah, so safespace.qa is there online. It's a platform where everyone can access, they can register and be part of ambassador programs, or they can just be viewers of the content.
Yeah, so it's a government initiative under the umbrella of the Ministry of Transportation and Communications, and their overarching sort of objective is to make children safe online. But to make children safe online, you have to touch on the whole ecosystem. Everyone who has a role to play needs to know what to do. So this is why it's such a wide project, and we've been doing this for 2 years now, and developed over 500 different media assets that are on the platform. That's on top of like redeveloping the website or the portal itself to make it more human-centric and more easy to navigate. And I think that also like a reason why we chose this project is it gives a bit of a different perspective that not all digital education is in the form of online courses or the typical, online courses. There's a lot of education that is informal, and it comes in these kinds of formats.
Okay. And smaller packages, because if you go to the safespace.qa, each asset, let's say it's a video or animation, it also has like pointers at actions that the learners can do, and also at additional resources and links that are relevant. So it's each package is a moment of learning.
Okay, good to learn that. I'd love to ask the audience here if they have any questions to share with us. Please go ahead.
Hello. You were just mentioning that the programs designed are somehow to fill the gap since it's tackling most ages. The technology is quite new in the Arab world. In the presentation, I have just seen some pictures for people with a Gulf costume. Yep. So I think it's targeted for them. You've mentioned that these programs are made to enhance critical thinking for a global citizen. In the Saudi Arabia right now, there's this NEOM project, and it's supported by Prince Mohammed bin Salman. What is the global citizen? You're creating programs to fill this new aspect that is drawn by the Saudi government.
So let me explain something. So we showed two different programs. One is the RAUD program and the Riyali program as a whole, where it's financial literacy for entrepreneurs, for basics, for different types of financial literacy and target groups. And the other one is cyber safety, where we talked about the global citizen is about the program of cyber safety. But to explain to you why the CSR program was initiated by SEDCO, which is a company, a very large conglomerate company in Saudi Arabia, is because they wanted to align with the Mohammed bin Salman Vision 2030. And one of the parts of Vision 2030 is enhancing the financial literacy and understanding on all the groups in the Saudi society, from children to entrepreneurship, and to increase the number of local businesses and entrepreneurs. So they do have a mandate to try to meet with this Vision 2030. And that's why a company like this and several banks also support and fund public initiatives like this. So this is available for public. Anyone can take it. And the reason why it's the Saudi dress and all that is because it is targeted to the local Saudi community. Unlike the SafeSpace does have this aspect of it's from Qatar to Qatar and the world. This is the cyber safety program. They have less of a requirement of showing more of the Saudi and the local, but they do have that requirement as well. And that's why we said even the English part has cultural affordances of the Gulf, the Arab and Qatar community.
All right.
But this is something very important to keep in mind.
And just to add to what Ruba said, so these two projects are projects that we were hired to do. So we don't really make the decision on what kind of impact they have. We just try to understand the objectives of our clients and
reach that impact.
And reach that. We will be launching our own learning platform, which is created by us and for us, and that's going to have more of a social impact.
Okay, I have one more question, please.
Sure.
This is the point that I want just to reach. Every single program can be assessed as a good program that fulfills all of its objectives by something called post-assessment. The ground in Lebanon isn't ready for post-assessment because there are kind of different varieties in the Lebanese society.
So there's a typical method of, let's say, assessing the success of a program through a pre-assessment and a post-assessment and then seeing the improvement. But truly, if you want to see proper impact of a program, you need to measure certain behavioral changes and certain aspects that you want to remove. So for example, with the SafeSpace program, we wanted to, for example, reduce the number of complaints that come to the Interior Ministry about cyberbullying, for example, or things like that. Then it's a behavioral change. We see, like, from when we started the program till a year or two after, if there are changes in behavior and things like that. And this is often related to the Kirkpatrick model, if you've heard about it. So even with, for example, we did a program about digital literacy for NGOs with a different organization, and it's not made for Saudi Arabia, it's made for the Arab world and the MENA region all together. So it's in French, English, and in Arabic. But the objective from there is to, for example, reduce the number of people getting persecuted for their sharing their opinions online and things like that. So these are measures that can be done after like a year, after 6 months, after such, not just the post-assessment. The post-assessment tells you just right now, like how much retention you got, but in a year or in 6 months, how much have they applied or how much do they still know? This has to be done in like a long-term process and a sustainability plan. But related to Lebanon, in Lebanon, I feel that despite the infrastructure difficulty that we have, we really do have the attitude and approach by the majority of learners to be tech savvy and find ways to do online content. So even like there are a lot of MOOCs out there on Open edX, on Coursera, on even, as Hassan mentioned, we're setting up a platform with social impact. And these spaces, Lebanese people are very brave and they do try to find ways, even within a reduced capacity. And that's one of the reasons why Hassan was saying accessibility and mobile friendliness of content has been a top priority in recent years. things that you can do offline and then connect online and upload your status on is also very important. So some learning management systems do that. You can download content on your phone, and then when you're done, when you're submitting, it connects with the online platform. So there are solutions around this, and I do hope that for the sake of Lebanon and for the sake of the region, that there are more initiatives, as you said, aligned globally in a vision or in a sustainability plan. Inshallah, for us in particular, in Lebanon, we have a huge need for that.
All right. I'm happy actually that you've raised this point, Farah. The idea of a global citizen is not only NEOM related, but it has maybe started with the United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs.
Yeah.
Okay, we might have hours of discussion of what a global citizen is, but okay, it's there. And as maybe Hassan has said, that it's part of a project that they have contributed to, and they have always to abide by possibly the requirements suggested by the employer or the bid or the proposal. Any other questions? And maybe here it's getting close to the end. So feel free if there is a quick question. Big thank you, both Ruba and Hassan. That was wonderful. And we wish you all the best with your projects. And we hope to meet you soon again. Thank you lots. And good end of day to everyone here.
Thank you
very much.
Good luck
on your exams, guys.